Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound Podcast quick picks video for UFC Fight Night Dolidze taking on Hernandez. And as always, I'm here to give you all of my picks for this card with a full confident level traffic light system at the bottom, full card breakdown in 15 minutes or less. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound Podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we kick things off in the early prelim opener of Cody Brundage taking on Eric McCormick. And I got to say, man, I'm not very high on Cody Brundage. This fight was thrown together a little bit last minute, but I like Cody Brundage in this matchup. I don't really think that Eric is UFC level. We saw him take on Nazilton Rozaboyev, and he just didn't look like a great fighter. When you look at tape study on him, his striking seems a little bit unorthodox. And when you look at the grappling, which I think is where Cody Brundage is going to shine here, I wasn't too impressed with his wrestling and his takedown defense. I think Cody Brundage can come in here and get his wrestling going. And we know with Cody Brundage that he can trade in the pocket. He has very, very nice hooks, and he does carry a little bit of power in his punches. So I'm going to go with Cody Brundage this week, medium level confidence to get it done. I don't necessarily think that Eric is going to be able to go the distance here. I think Cody Brundage is most likely going to win via knockout or TKO, mixing in the wrestling or finding the knockout on the feet. And next up we have Gabriel Fernandez taking on the human alphabet of Juliana Stoliarenko. And Stoliarenko, if you don't know, is the armbar queen. Most of her finishes do come via armbar, especially early in the first round. And when it comes to her trading in the pocket with her striking, she is always down to throw hands. I do think that she obviously shines much better on the ground, a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but I don't think none of that matters here against a woman like Gabriel Fernandez. Fernandez has impressed me coming off of her upset victory over Wang Kong. She looks like she has fantastic boxing. She does have power in the hands. She is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu herself, and she's a very physically dominating woman inside the octagon. She's shown with her physical conditioning that she seems very physically strong. I think wherever this fight goes, she can have success if she keeps this one on the feet. I think she's a much more technical striker. She's got good cardio, and if this fight does hit the mat, I expect her to be able to hold her own in the grappling and be aware of Stoliarenko's armbar. So give me Gabriel Fernandez here, medium level confidence to get it done. And next up, we have Uros Medic, the doctor, taking on Gilbert Urbina. And Gilbert Urbina, if you guys didn't know, the Ultimate Fighter finalist, losing in the final, I believe it was to Brian Battle. And he's coming off of a 1.5 year layoff here. And Urbina is tall for the division, does fight behind the jab, does like to mix in some grappling, but I don't think any of that's going to matter here against Medic. Medic does tend to get, a little bit, I don't want to say trading in the pocket, but he likes to be technical in his kickboxing. But sometimes he can fall in love with, rushing in and getting caught. We've seen in multiple fights now. He does get caught. He does get dropped, especially in the fight against Semmelsberger. That's pretty much how I see this fight. I think it's going to be a technical back and forth striking affair. I think Medic is going to be able to defend the takedowns of Urbina, keep this one on the feet, and ultimately find the knockout here late in the second or the third. Hard to be confident in either of these guys just purely because of how much Medic gets dropped and how much Urbina is coming off of such a long layoff. But give me Uros Medic here, the doctor, to get it done. Not super confident though. And next up, we have Priscilla Cachoeira taking on Jocelyn Edwards. And I'm going to go with Edwards here. I think that this fight really just comes down to the short notice. We've seen with Priscilla Cachoeira that she struggles to defend the takedowns, and she seems to be able to get submitted very easily. And we've seen with Jocelyn Edwards in the past that she will mix in takedowns. She will grapple if she needs to. I think she's got a little bit of dog in her. She's never been finished on the feet. She's only been submitted once. So we don't have to necessarily worry too much about her taking shots from the powerful Cachoeira. I think that's the only way that Cachoeira comes in here and gets the victory as a first round knockout. I do think that Jocelyn Edwards will mix in the grappling here. Women's MMA can be tricky at times. So that's why it's not going to be super confident here on my part from Jocelyn Edwards. But I do think that she can hold her own in the striking. She has decent kickboxing, and I do think if she wants to make this fight an easy fight, she takes this fight to the ground and uses her grappling. Slight lean here in Jocelyn Edwards as the power of Cachoeira is definitely on the side of the Brazilian. However, I am going to pick Edwards here on a full camp to mix in the wrestling and wear down Cachoeira, maybe even find a late submission. And next up, we have Toshumi Kazama taking on Elijah Smith. And I'm going to go with Elijah Smith here. Kazama, to me, isn't UFC level. He has nice back takes, good jiu-jitsu, but he's been pretty much target practice for anybody who's fought inside the UFC that has reasonable athleticism and striking. Elijah Smith, obviously, coming into this fight, his second fight inside the UFC, and he has decent boxing. I like his combinations. He really does a good job of mixing in the shots to the body. He seems to have decent takedown defense, which I think is going to serve him well against Kazama. And we've seen with Smith that the boxing pretty much, it's pretty decent, if I'm being honest. Only 22, 23 years old. And I just think that this really just comes down to a very winnable opponent or a beatable opponent here for Smith, using the striking, using the boxing, staying off of the fence, and really just keeping this fight upright. I like his striking ability. He doesn't tend to throw a ton of kicks either, which we have to, kind of be concerned about against a grappler, him getting his kicks caught. I think that the fact that the boxing here is going to be all she wrote. I think that the timing of those shots is going to be enough to find the chin of Kazama here. And next up, we have Rafael Sequeira taking on Julius Walker. And I like Julius Walker to get this one done. Walker standing at 6'4", tall for the division. And he has an ability to get inside and really mix in the grappling. He likes to use his clinch wrestling up against the fence to go for body lock, trip, takedowns. He'll beat you up on the ground with ground and pound. And his striking looked fairly reasonably decent against Alonzo Menafield in his UFC debut. That's a tough opponent to take on in your debut. And to me, Sequeira just isn't UFC level. We've seen him come into the octagon now, get knocked out twice early in round one. He seems to be backed up very easily, which is going to play into the hands here of Walker to get those clinch fence takedowns. Give me Julius Walker here, medium level confidence to get it done. And next up, we have Christian Leroy Duncan taking on Eric, your boy, Anders. And give me Christian Leroy Duncan here. I think the technical kickboxing and striking here, the athleticism is all on the side of Christian Leroy Duncan. We've seen with Anders that he comes in, he likes to mix in the grappling, he likes to go for those takedowns. I think the speed here and the athletic ability of Duncan is going to give Anders a lot of trouble. I do think that Anders is going to try to wrestle here like he does in most of his fights. 38 years old now at middleweight. He tends to be, I don't want to say slowing down, but he's definitely not the athlete that he once was in his football days. I do like Christian Leroy Duncan here to stuff the takedowns, ultimately win with the striking here as a much more fluid, technical, better athlete on the feet. Give me Christian Leroy Duncan, medium level confidence. And next up, we have the confident pick in Gene Matsumoto taking on Miles Johns. And to me, Miles Johns is just, he's not all that. He tends to throw one shot at a time, a little bit low volume. I do think that he can mix in the grappling, but not in this matchup. I think Gene Matsumoto's the better grappler, the better wrestler. He showed that against Rob Font in his previous fight, a much higher level opponent. Matsumoto has a nice guillotine, decent Muay Thai striking. He crashes the pockets with elbows as well, likes knees in the clinch. And I think wherever this fight goes, Gene Matsumoto is going to be the better fighter. And to me, Miles Johns, unless he lands one big shot here, one big punch, he's going to struggle here to compete with the volume and the grappling here of Gene Matsumoto. Matsumoto by whatever he wants. Green, confident level, throw him in parlays, whatever you want this week. Matsumoto for the victory here, confident pick. And next up, we have Andre Fili taking on Christian Rodriguez. And I don't trust Rodriguez at 145. I never have, never will. They give me Andre Fili here in a slight lean. Andre Fili, even though he is 35, he still has a lot of talent. He has decent boxing. He's the bigger fighter in this matchup. Obviously a former or Team Alpha male product. Decent grappling, decent wrestling. And we've seen with Rodriguez that if he can't get his wrestling going, he tends to struggle. He will try to mix in that wrestling, and he had success at the lower weight class at 135. But since moving up to 145, he hasn't had that same success. A little bit of a weight bully in my eyes, and being the smaller guy here against Andre Fili, I think Fili stuffs the takedowns, gets his boxing going, and gets back in the win column here. Only a slight lean, as Andre Fili does tend to be a little bit inconsistent, but I do like touchy Fili, Andre Fili to get it done here. And next up, we have Angela Hill taking on Lasmin Lucindo. That name always gets me. I'm going to lean ever so slightly to Lucindo here. I do think she is talented. I do think she did tend to show a little bit of a lack of experience in her previous fight against Amanda Lemos. She is good at coming in and getting takedowns. She does mix in the striking well. She can be a little bit low volume, but I do think she learns from her previous performance against a UFC veteran. And again, fighting a UFC veteran here in Angela Hill. I just like that, Hill's Muay Thai is pretty decent. She does a good job of being able to stuff takedowns. She's definitely worked on her grappling, but I just give me the youth here. I think that the young sort of savvy UFC product here in Lucindo is going to be able to get this one done, mixing in the grappling, and ultimately her cardio has not failed her yet. I do think that Hill tends to slow down as she's now 40 years old, but I give me Lucindo in a slight lean, as women's MMA can be a little bit tricky, along with Hill being the provider of many upsets in the past. And next up, we have the co-main event. We have Ode Osborne taking on Steve Erceg. And I like Steve Erceg, man, wherever this fight goes. I think the only way that this fight ends is Erceg by submission, or maybe or ground and pound, or Ode Osborne manages to get some sort of early first round knockout here. We've seen in the past with Erceg that he has been touched by, faster strikers in Kaikar, France. He can be a little bit slow, a little bit low volume. But Erceg, I think he mixes in the grappling. We've seen the deficiencies in Ode Osborne's grappling in the past. I like him to come in here, get back in the wing column, mix in the grappling, find the submission early in this one. And we've seen with Ode Osborne that when he tries to get back to his feet, he gives up his back and he ultimately gets choked out. So as long as Steve Erceg just, minds his P's and Q's, stays defensively sound here, especially early against an explosive striker like Ode Osborne, I think that Steve Erceg can get this one done in the co-main event. And next up, we have the main event of the evening. We have Anthony Hernandez taking on Roman Dolidze, and I like Dolidze here, dog of the week against fluffy Hernandez. I think he can stuff the takedowns here, keep this one on the feet. He does a good job of mixing in his strikes. He tends to be a little bit low volume and kind of throwing one big shot at a time, but I think that that's good. He won't overextend here against fluffy Hernandez. I think that Dolidze can crack. He's the heavier hitter, and we've seen in the past that a guy like Anthony Hernandez can be touched to the body. He can be hurt, and he has been finished in his 2 losses. And I think that Dolidze's grappling is a little bit underestimated here, a world-level grappler. And I do think that he does a good job of going for submissions to create scrambles, and that'll open up the ability to get back to his feet. He can go 5 rounds that he's shown in the past as well. So give me Roman Dolidze here to get it done in the main event of UFC Fight Night. Dolidze taking on Hernandez. And as always, I got to let you guys know what's coming on the channel, what's already on the channel. We've got the full card breakdown here for UFC Fight Night. Dolidze taking on fluffy Hernandez, a more detailed breakdown that Carlos and I do every week. Check that video out. And obviously we have the dog of the week, full highlight reel tape for you guys. Check that video out of why I like Roman Dolidze and a more detailed breakdown this week of the dog of the week, my favorite betting underdog. And speaking of bets, we have the best bets video for this card. Check it out, all of the best bets to put some money in your wallet. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, 15 minutes or less, full card breakdown. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.